Expected to make it, so
Logical Raptors fanatic.
shoot trying to miss. Like every shot
Logical Raptors fanatic.
try to make it, so I wasn't like surprised.
A fun guy. Obviously
Logical Raptors fanatic.
love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
No
Project Truth.
has contacted me, and I see all the stuff that, like, you guys see. I dream like they dream. Yeah, Yeah, so they keep dreaming. I dream too.
Salute, real ones. Project Truth always. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors fanatic, and we have an interesting one today. You can tell sometimes when reporters are about to write a piece or something, they start asking certain questions and ask the similar questions to the like same type of questions to the whole team, and then whoever's going to write the article about it. And I think some of the questions that came up recently about the first half and the team reflecting on what the issues were in the first half before we started to kind of turn it around, where Nick Nurse says like about the end of January into February we start to see proper defense and stuff. And we're going to go into what was the issues earlier in the month, well, earlier in the season, the first half, right? So it's going to be interesting. We're going to use a lot of clips for their words to explain what happened and not just necessarily me giving my own take, because they understand what's going on inside the locker room, which also has context to what are the real issues. And I think Nick Nurse kind of nails it, and it's an interesting theory I've kind of used in spaces, but I'm going to cement it more here today. So strap back and enjoy. This one's going to be a good one.
I think you've talked for the past maybe month or so about kind of upping the workman-like attitude, more practices, attention to detail, professionalism. What do you make of kind of the trajectory of the team in that regard? Are you seeing benefits from that?
A little bit like I said to you guys yesterday and maybe before the game today is, adding another player and getting a couple guys back from injury should enable us to play this much more intensity throughout the course of the game. And I think that was the case tonight. There was a lot of subbing moving around in the first half, much lower minutes for the guys. I mean, I know it's only 3 or 4 here or there, but that makes a big difference to play 16 or 15 instead of 19 or 20 in the first half. It enables us to again go out and increase our work rate at the defensive end, and that's what we want to do. We want to make things difficult. We want to disrupt rhythm. And you need energy to do that. So that's what I make of it.
In regards to like the attention to detail and kind of like blocking out the noise maybe, do you think those increased practices and just again that attention to more work has kind of helped in that regard as well?
Well, I think that, listen, when there's issues, you got to try to plug the hole. Right? If it's transition, if it's defensive rebounding, if it's guarding the ball, if it's rim protection. I mean, like there's been some issue, there's going to be, I just mentioned one, like tomorrow we're going to be working on some sort of defensive drill where we're matching up in transition, that we got to communicate a little bit better. And it seems, and, again, we've done a lot of studying on some of this stuff too, and we got to there's certain guys that are getting, that need to be more verbal and need to sprint harder or whatever it is to get better at that. So we'll continue to do that, because I think if you looked at the half-court defensive sets, most were pretty good. We made a few mistakes, but nothing like we were making 3 months ago. Like, like there's a few mistakes in coverages and schemes, but nothing. I mean, really solid as far as executing the schemes tonight.
Interesting kind of clip from Nick, right? And honestly, he's talking about what this team is built on. We're built on this defensive machine that can be versatile and do a whole bunch of things and always be pressuring the ball to create turnovers to help us with poor shooting till we learn how to become better shooters. So there is a dynamic where the defensive end is where we need to be the most solid, right? And we heard there a key phrase, work rate on the defensive end. So when we have more guys eating up more minutes that are reliable in different defensive positions, right? It lessens the needs of other guys to having to do all the defensive stuff, right? So it's a combination of having enough bodies that know the system, that are able to adjust on a string with everyone else, making rotations, knowing coverages, and all types of different things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you need the bodies to to have enough work rate on the defensive end to have an intensive, like a high intensity defense that results in you not needing a heavy offensive game. And you can rely on your defense to make offense right now while you're still working out the kinks on offense. He's going to talk a bit on the offense and some of that stuff, but we're going to talk more on it. But I think we need to keep in mind that when we saw a lot of guys in and out of the rotation, it's hard for guys to really know their role and solidify in roles. When you hear Nick saying we had to plug this, we had to plug that, when you plug too much stuff because of missing players, it morphs away from what you want to actually be doing when those players were there. So it's this balance of not going too far away from what we normally do. So guys continue to learn and grow in their roles, but also it's the work rate that needs to be there on the defensive end. Like we see like, oh, why does Nick keep someone on the floor if they're anemic offensively? It's because the guy coming in might score a bucket or two, but him defensively is a weakness and they're going to target that to gain more points than he can score. So ultimately it's a negative when we're failing defensively. So defensively is key for Nick and everyone here. Our defense is the reason we win so much. Now, the way we've built on top of these defensive schemes and all this type of stuff, right? It's not going to look pretty all the time because we have roles kind of morphing and changing at the moment. When you change a team or there's inconsistency in availability of the main rotation pieces, you see a lot of different other things that aren't going towards building together the together vision of what this team is supposed to be going forward. So that's why Masai was saying there's a little bit of selfishness and the way they've grown individually, but now it's time to get back to growing as a team. And so we can kind of go over and dissect it a little bit more with their proper analysis because they have all the context of behind the scenes stuff and they're giving us the answers to what happened the first half. So let's start getting into it. So obviously I got this thing laid out, the first 4 months of the season, first half up to game 42, right? And we're going to look at different things and see who was in and out of the lineup actually. And let's start off by remembering how the season started with that opener and stuff. First of all, we know that Scottie in training camp kind of rolled his ankle a bit, and the Scottie speculation on the ankle went crazy, and it was way overblown. I think he was just working through a tougher curriculum, as Lex likes to say. And FEV was looked to be more of a facilitator and a spacer and be like the guy that shoots, right? Versus where he would be the guy driving. And we were talking a lot about getting guys driving, like Scottie driving. We wanted OG driving. We want to open up the options because we saw in the playoffs we were limited in options. We had VanVleet and then we had Siakam. And if they were able to kind of X them out, we weren't doing a lot of stuff other than those two. So we need to build the options for this year's playoffs. We talked a lot about the summer plan and stuff, but let's focus in on the season. Obviously, this was kind of like a tough schedule in the beginning a bit. Cavs right off the bat, win, okay. Brooklyn took us, okay. Yeah, close game though, close game, right? So Heat came, close game, yeah. But we got him back by a better margin, nice. Then we beat Philly down, and they were down in the dumps. And then we kind of gave that one to them that kind of kick-started their season, right? And the Hawks, we demolished the Hawks. That was easy work. We weren't worried about what the new additions were. And we could see that FVV was out for the Hawk game, and then Scottie was in and out for the win in Miami, the first one, right? So not too much movement around, but Otto Porter Jr. had a baby, so obviously he didn't even start playing till we're going to see in another month. But let's key in on what Scottie was trying to really develop this year. And I think there was a great question asked of him where he keys in on some of the stuff. Let's take a look.
As far as being able to limit the turnovers to such a degree over the past couple months?
I don't think I really try to force anything. I just try to make the right basketball play. So it works out.
Scottie, maybe a month ago, Nick talked about sometimes with the team when you guys were struggling, a lack of effort, a lack of professionalism at times. Do you think those things have improved over the last month or so as you guys are really playing better? And if so, why?
For sure. We all felt like we wasn't really stepping up to our standards of really trying to guard the ball, defending the ball like we did last year, and we went over that, and we all had a meeting that we just really want to just get back to it. So we started playing harder, guarding the ball better, closing out to shooters, not allowing them to get so many easy looks. So I feel like we just came together and picked up our slack.
You guys have also been practicing a ton over the last month and just kind of really focusing on the work. That's been the message. Has that helped you personally, those extra practices and that extra film sessions and all that stuff? Because you're also kind of playing the best basketball right now. So do you think those things are correlated at all?
It helps for sure, watching extra film, having that attention to detail in practice. But I feel like that's one thing that we all just try to stay in the gym, keep trying to get extra work, and no matter if it's within practice and on our own times, we just still always try to get extra work in.
Nick talked.
So we heard there Scottie like answering a couple questions on different things. At first, he was talking about his turnovers and stuff, and he needs to learn the right play. And I think that takes time with any player. They have to. It takes time to really learn the game over time and know what's the rightest play to make. And obviously, VanVleet's at a certain level, and we're trying to get Scottie there. And that was a big part of this year, trying to develop his intuition for where the right play is, right? And he does have spectacular kind of passes, but sometimes they're out of things a little bit too much and the receiver's not ready or something. And that'll take time as he slowly adjusts to find his own kind of rhythm, how he plays NBA point guard and calls the floor out and stuff like that. And it's going to take some time. So it's just a continuing of the process, right? We're just continuing. And I think the main focus was getting Scottie more touches right this year, getting Precious more up to speed, and getting OG to build on his offensive game to become a real option when they're doubling Pascal or they're doubling Van Vliet, and he can make a pass or shoot or drive or be that triple threat that we've kind of wanted him for years, and I kind of harped on earlier in the year with some of my early videos. But let's continue on to the next month. This one was okay. The death schedule, we came out above 500, 4-3, not bad. I'll take it, right? So let's continue on. This is obviously the month where we started to kind of exacerbate the reserves and kind of plug too much and push guys to do more than they were planned to before. And obviously, Otto Porter Jr. in for the first game of November, but then that Dallas wet spot on the floor hit and Spicy out changes the workload. Spicy P carries a massive workload on the defensive end, and that needs to be supplemented by the other players on the roster if he's out. And that's a lot of effort missing in the whole system. And obviously, offensively, we can't even get into him needing him on offense and the type of stuff he was doing at that point. Really showing like that top 5 flavor that he was talking about. I don't believe he's fully there, but you know what I mean, like trying to get the juices flowing, right? So obviously we lost that game in Dallas. It was shocking a bit. So vanvleet came back, obviously. We were trying to kind of pace vanvleet through the first half of the season. We really want to like kind of build other options and save Fred VanVleet for the second half and the playoffs if we got there. And that's still the plan and whatnot. But obviously, there's a lot of different things going on. But this is where it starts to exacerbate things with having to push the Van Vliet button early when he wasn't fully ready. And he does admit to mismanaging his knee injury in the summer. And maybe like he wasn't 100% on the knee at first, the back thing too, right? And then the re-injured back thing. So there was a couple health issues. And we talked about it in Extension Series 1. Fred VanVleet's health this season and managing his health and managing how much gas he outputs per game and all that kind of stuff and learning a style that's less tiring for him to be able to be out there enough minutes and be effective at the same time, right? So it was kind of a different thing. Like Lowry had to learn through it in his later years how to be better, more efficient, right? More effective and more efficient by learning up more point guard skills. And we've seen kind of improvement during this time in FEV. But obviously, pushing the FEV button early is not a good sign for how we want to start the season. And then the whole thing with Kem Birch, like he got surgery on the knee and he was playing slash rehabbing and trying to give us minutes while he was rehabbing, but obviously some games he'd come out a little bit more sore and then we wouldn't see him for a bunch of games and we were trying to limit his minutes to make sure it wasn't re-injured because we needed him so bad. Like you'll see in a second, right? So let's continue on. But so we ended up winning the game that FEV came in and then we lost to Chicago at Chicago in their building, right? It wasn't a pretty game whatsoever, right? So then we went to Houston, or Houston came home to our place and we whooped them a bit. But then this is where I think the major piece kind of derailed our season. Precious out. Precious was one of the biggest reasons why we did so well last year. Him being able to supplement minutes in that center position and be able to defend like he does and actually provide effect in that area enabled us to play good enough for us to actually be in the playoffs again versus Tampa, where all our options were really young at that time. Van Vliet's not fully in it. Siakam's not fully the guy yet, right? But now, a year forward, we're seeing that we can sort of carry weight. We can carry weight without a center at all, but we start seeing everything kind of pile up VanVleet's more in the paint. Siakam's more in the paint. OG's more in the paint. Precious is more in the paint. Like, there's all this kind of stuff when you don't have a center. And we were exacerbating the workload by not having the center. So having to always double on post catches and stuff and then recover, that takes energy. That takes defensive workload and intensity, right? So if we have a center that's able to go one-on-one, we can conserve energy. It's like this theory in tennis where you see them not go for certain balls because they're conserving energy throughout the match in case it goes longer or farther. There's a certain in sports, stamina and energy consumption are big factors that, like, people looking from the outside don't really factor in heavy. That's why lineups or hockey lineups are switched so often. You can only skate full out for like a so long till you have to kind of get a breather, right? So it's about energy and stamina and all this stuff. And if we have half the rotation missing, that burdens the other half of rotation, and guys that are not prepared to step up into the rotation and have bigger roles, like a starter role like Chris or something like that, right? We seen his effect off the bench, and it's better there than it would be on the main kind of starter level, right? So it's key to have bodies that are able to be effective and hold weight with that defensive workload. And we can see how everyone's in and out now. We can see, okay, so Precious is out. We lose the game to Oklahoma. Fred VanVleet's out this game, and Kem's in, but still lose to the Pacers. So we got Pascal out, Precious out, VanVleet out, right? Then Gary Trent Jr. goes out, and somehow we get a win over the Pistons, eked one, right? MPJ, boom, gone for the whole season. This is how much games he kind of played and or had a possibility. This is OPJ, Otto Porter Jr. You know what I mean? This is the only length of time he played for us this year, which is a bummer. He would have definitely helped with spacing, right? We saw the issues. So JT or Gary Trent Jr. out, Fred VanVleet out, Precious out, Pascal out, Otto Porter Jr. out. And then so Fred VanVleet kind of rushes back, not 100% yet, right? And we do get a win over Miami, right? Then Chris Boucher's kind of out against the overtime loss against the Hawks, right? Then Scottie B's out in the loss against the Nets, and Gary Trent Jr.'s in, Chris Boucher's in. So we're getting like this kind of in and out revolving door of guys. Like, how can you build any rhythm with half your main rotation out? Like, this is what we were doing, and we were still kind of eking out wins here and there, but it was starting to exhaust everyone's energy levels. Like, we were starting to push on too much. Like, Chris Boucher kind of hit the wall a bit, and then he kind of had to recorrect his game a little bit more. Like, he exhausted out the options. And when we're plugging like this so hard, standards drop. And that's why we kind of had that meeting to kind of set things back in place. Yes, we know everyone's been in and out, and it's been a tough slide this year, but we need to get back to what we were doing last year and kind of focus. Start really focusing and paying attention to details and put more work in, because it's about the work, right? So ultimately we could see this is starting to get a lot tougher at the moment with the injuries and stuff. So FAV's out again, right? He's in and out. Scottie's out now. Siakam's out. Precious is out for time, right? So then Spicy's back in on the win against Cleveland, which is nice, but he's not fully in rhythm per se. Well, he actually came off the energy pretty like decent, but you could see him hit a tiny wall a couple games in and need kind of a full kind of re-establishing. And we started to get back to things, right? FEV's back in, SB4's back in, and we deal with the Caps nicely, right? So, and then the last game of November, the New Orleans game, we kind of stunk it because we didn't have Precious, or Kem Birch was getting neutralized by JV and his spacing, right? We went over it in Raptors Freak Nation discussion. That's a great place if you want to kind of digest the kind of the afterthoughts of the game and different topics and theories of real Raptors fans that want this team to win, and they're giving them out. So they're there to get picked up. But let's get into the next month. But maybe a clip first from Nick to kind of set this up a little bit.
Nick, earlier in the season, yourself and the front office seemed to always be kind of optimistic there would be some sort of turnaround with this team, especially when the team was not looking at their best stretches. How satisfying has it been to be able to see the month of February go by and have probably your best stretch of basketball?
Well, it's good. I mean, I don't know what that is. I don't know, 7, 8 out of 10 or something like that. That's not bad. I mean, we probably let one of those get away from us and had one stinker in there too, right? But I think that over the month and even maybe creeping back a couple weeks into January, I've been much more satisfied with the defensive effort. And again, I think that's what we knew we were going to be built on all season, and we're getting there. And it's been that's going to give us a chance every night. I mean, what did we shoot 40% tonight and still win? That's not great shooting percentage. I think the offense will come here shortly. I mean, we know we're running out of time, but I think the motions and the moves and the things we're doing and the spacing and the relocating, all that stuff is at a pretty high level. The cutting's getting better, passing's getting better. Now we just got to do the most important part, put it in the hole.
Keying in on a lot of different things there, right? So it's about sometimes like the offense and the way we're trying to figure things out. It's a lot of the times about the right play and the right decision. It's about the guys making the right decision to get that open shot. Yes, we have to make those shots, and ultimately that decides if you win or lose the game. But creating and developing these shots and like the way we do create open shots is the key to what we're trying to develop, right? And so obviously trying to build any offensive rhythm in a read and react system with guys revolving in and out of the lineup creates a bit of issues, right? And we heard Nick kind of talking on it, right? So let's continue on though and get into the next month where Tank Nation kind of got its like the air under their wings. So obviously this month is where we kind of fell off momentum wise. I think we exacerbated a lot of the rotation on where they were in the season. They were asked to be doing a whole bunch of different other things to compensate for so many guys out of the lineup. And it's not just when it's happening, it's the effect of the drain like during that process, and then the after process. We felt it a lot more during these games, and we'll check in here. So Brooklyn obviously got us right. So then we go to Orlando. Orlando comes home or comes to our building. We get them. Boston gets us. Bo Cruz is out, which he was starting to see time in the lineup, starting to get acclimated, right? It's the system we have is not easy to pick up and learn like in a day. It takes time to kind of read and react and adjust the way we want you to, in a sense. So there needs to be some kind of base knowledge and high IQ if you want to really get in there quicker and become a real option in our kind of scheme of everything, because the defense is such a big important part. I'm going to keep saying that, right? So the Boston loss was hurtful, right? So LA Lakers, we won that one. Then the Orlando losses, OG's out. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Wimby time, Wimby time. Oh, we're stealth tanking now." But no, we were just exhausted from carrying so much weird weight, like of in and out lineups and the workload, the defensive workload. We were asking guys to do way more. And this is the kind of month where the kind of meeting happened, where they kind of needed to kind of set things in line, because when injuries happen, yes, we let things slide a bit. We know it's next man up. It's not going to look perfect, but we're going to try to get it done, right? It's about still trying to win games and do the right things on the court that the coaching staff asks. And Fred VanVleet's going to go into it in a second. Some of the issues with the in and out lineup and some of the younger guys being asked to step up. But also keep in mind that we were doing well before this month, right? So we're 2 games up above 500 before December hits, and we kind of had a lot of injuries in November in a sense of in and out in the lineup, and that was the month that Spicy kind of missed the whole thing, kind of, right? Precious is out now, and he's out till January, right? So we don't see him till January, and it creates this issue at center because the guy we were relying on to give us center minutes is not there. And now we're kind of trying to plug away, but then those guys are kind of taking too much weight on now. So it's all about kind of, well, and we heard Nick saying we're gonna hear Nick say we got guys back and we got Yak up now, so things should be different, right? But ultimately, we have to remember the kind of chemistry they were trying to build through the season, and they worked tirelessly through the summer to start building that team chemistry with the new guys and Scottie, because he's a big piece of us going forward. And I think ultimately we need to see how things play out a little bit more. It's early days in the us having a center back and stuff too. So obviously we saw the issues before not having a center, and it completely exacerbated that to the point where we got our answer. There's no way we can't have this team not have a center anymore, like a heavy like that. And we went and got one for now and in the future. So it wasn't just like a win now. Oh, we have to do something this year or Pirtle's gone. He's going to still be in the plans if we kind of sputter out a bit. Other guys might change in and out, but I think Pirtle, it's Siakam, Barnes, you know what I mean? Those guys are kind of solid in there a bit for now, right? And we're going to continue going forward because Pirtle needs to be given a chance. He's already shown improvement in his free throws and his form and stuff, and Cool Cat was describing it down to a T. And I kind of seen it, and I just didn't kind of describe it out as vividly, and she has great descriptive words because she's a great real like basketball fan that goes to games and actually likes the sport a lot, right? So it's really interesting how we're going to still continue to try to grow individually when things are awry, but then it's also about this team. We have to build the team process up to the point where we're tested enough and able enough with so many options to be able to play good competitive basketball in the playoffs when our main season options are getting shut down. So there's a lot of different things involved in that, obviously, and OG going out just makes things even worse, right? So the Kings, Bo Cruz is back in, but he's not no OG, right? So like, then that's a loss to Warriors, a loss, Gary out. This is some bad times, right? And FVV's just like, I gotta play better, man. I gotta play better. Like that. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts, and that's fair. That's fair because he is getting paid a lot of money, but him needing to turn on so early in the season was the lack of the rest of the roster kind of being able to carry the load with the injuries on top. So it's like this double knifing of a bunch of different things, right? At the same time. And it's just luck, right? It's basically just luck. I don't believe it's overplaying or anything like that. It's just the Siakam thing was a freak accident, and then dominoes started falling in a sense of where our plan was to start the season and where it was at this point, right? So obviously a loss in Philly, but then that Knicks game kind of woke us up a little bit, right? Ken Birch out again, OG back in. So we win the next game in the Knicks building, right? And I think that was the spicy 50-point game, if I believe so, right? So things were happening, but not every night, right? Like we didn't have enough defensive effort to make it close enough to get these wins, and some wins were close enough and we just couldn't make shots to at the end of the game to win, and those are part of the journey of growing and developing, and we are still a young team. Masai preaches patience a lot for a reason. It's not just because things are going to happen in a snap. We have to work through things out. Like these guys, some of these guys have never been put in certain positions, and we're testing things out, and we're slowly building these different aspects up to build these versatile players that can be effective in the playoffs and not have too many weaknesses that can the other team can rely on, right? So it's a process, and we're continuing through the process, even though it's tough at the moment. And I think FVV comes in. I'll finish off the month and then let FVV have his word on kind of what was really happening in these losses and stuff, and just reflecting, because I think once you're out of something, you're fully able to reflect on what was wrong when things are going right, and you can see the differences, right? So asking people what's wrong when things are going wrong, they don't exactly know, or they'd fix them, right? So it's like, or it's just circumstance. So it's like you have to wait a bit to find out the real answers on things. And once you get enough of those answers after looking intently, you get the idea of what's happening at the start of things and not need to wait the months and months after. Because these are the same kind of stuff I've been saying on this channel a bit, like about the defense and the offense being read and react and all that kind of stuff. And Nick is kind of echoing a lot of different things. Well, not echoing, because I read him and what he talks and the logic he uses, and I apply that to the team and see if what he's saying is true or not, or whatever. You know what I mean? It takes watching the game to proof what people are saying. If you don't understand what you're watching with the game, then it's hard to prove whether Nick Nurse is making sense with things, right? So it's a give and tug on different things, but I think ultimately it's just about continuing to learn that basketball logic and keying in on the things that the players think are important and find important, and the coach what he thinks important and finds important, and see if those things are showing out or they aren't, right? So it's like a continuous process of examining things, right? You don't just take things as is. You kind of have to watch things play out and understand. And over time, you kind of really get into the kind of knowing what's happening in a sense, right? So everyone was jumping off the cliff saying stealth tank. We're just Masai is a genius. He's tanking, but we're still growing. And no, 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 no. This is definitely not according to plan. This was definitely against plan here. And there's a lot of issues, and I'll let FEV kind of talk in on them, but we can see obviously, okay, so we got the New York 50 piece from Spicy, right? Cavs, we mushed them again, held down held down Donovan and Garland, right? FEV was in there that game, so he was on them, IQing these kind of younger guys that haven't learned up the NBA game a little bit, so he was able to have an advantage enough to really handle them this year for us. But obviously the game he was missing, we saw exactly kind of what we were missing from him a bit, right? So LA Clippers, we lost that one. Kem Birch back in. GTJ back in over there. So Memphis, we lost that one. That was a tough one against Adams. And like, or I think it wasn't Adams was away. I can't remember, but it was a tough one. Koloko kind of got hurt, but then he's back. It's this weird like thing. Like he gets injured the 28th, so like in practice, and then he's like in this December 29th game and then plays December 30th. So I don't know how to really kind of equate that here. I'm just going to let you know that that's an anomaly in a sense of what happens normally in this video right now, just because I didn't know how to put it, because everything's so spaced out in the way it is. So obviously Cloco in, vanvleet out, Precious out. Yeah, we were kind of exhausted a bit. Whoop the Suns. So obviously going 5 for 10 in the month of December wasn't great. Definitely pushes us against our plans come like in the second half. But it was early at that moment and we still had time to recover. We heard Nick talk about the month of February and we went what 8-3, so we kind of balanced it out a bit. But there is one more month and I did my logical live on the January month and we talked about how we went one game under 500. So we were starting to get back to things as Nick said in January, but before that happened, there were a lot of issues that Fred VanVleet puts his thumb on, and I think we need to hear him out a little bit here.
Layla Van Vliet, yeah. So, little girl born last week, right around this the New Orleans game around that time. So, yeah, the team, did good 2-1 while I was out. So I was happy about that as well.
One more back to basketball, if I could. The defense is starting to turn back or get back to where you guys were. What's outside of Yak, which isn't obvious, but what's been the biggest factor in that?
That's tough. That's a tough one. I just think you could see it. I mean, it's just like attention to detail, urgency locked into the game plan. Like, no funny business. It's just like it's got to matter. You know what I mean? Every possession's got to count and do the things that we're asked to do from the coaching staff and make plays and just make extra effort, extra rotation. Which when we do that, we're pretty special. But I think having Jakob helps balance out the floor, and put different guys. I know Coach talked about it the other day, just putting different guys on different positions and get the wings off the bigs and let them guard some of the other guards. So we gotta be able to rely on that defense, and the offense will come.
I think what we heard there from VanVleet is just talking about getting back to Raptors basketball, where we play full out on every possession because every possession matters and we start taking care of the ball, making good decisions, and we're rotating defensively and doing the things that the coaches are asking, right? So it's a lot of different things that like exacerbated issues in the first half for us. And I think now that we're a little bit away. It's a little bit more clearer, and we've kind of adjusted some of the things. Bringing in Pirtle is obviously a huge piece, but we still had another month of January where we kind of went one game under 500, and I'll get to January here. But we saw a lot of different things, right? And that's the point. Like sometimes you got to see it to know it doesn't work, or there's a lot of different things of testing things out and giving them the proper chance before scrapping different things. And there's a lot of information that is gleaned out of mistakes. Like not like inventors find like whatever a million ways not to do something, and one way to do it correct. Learning what not to do is also a good kind of development factor, and we need to learn those aspects as a younger team. And this is in part a lot of it. And FEV said it, he believes it starts on the defensive end, and then the offense will start to get its rhythm, and you get the defensive punch where we get the points off defense kind of helps insulate our guys to be able to go out and try different things offensively and not have to rely on possession. But now that it's second half, we're going all serious and we need to lessen the mistakes. Even though we haven't had a lot of time to work on it, it's going to continue to pay process if we continue to attention to detail. That's a lot of what Nick and Scottie said in the beginning and FEV said now. It's about the attention to detail and that focus of intent of every possession matters, and I'm not giving up or letting anything kind of slide. And yes, it kind of slipped when we had the revolving door of lineup, but that meeting was about let's get back to what we were doing last year when we were finding success on the defensive end by rotating out to threes. We heard all the stuff that the team kind of identified themselves about what were the issues in the first half, right? So let's continue on now. Obviously, there's a bit more than just up until game 42. I have a summary of some of the things that we're tracking here in the last couple months, but let's go over January and the first part of it, right? So obviously, first game of the month, FEV in, Precious in. We're starting to have a full lineup. Precious needs a couple games to get in rhythm, right? So obviously, we weren't fully clicking at that moment. We hit a good stride against the Blazers, Hornets twice. So some easy teams to kind of get back up in mode. And we kind of saw that it was a hit and miss at first, but then in February we started to gain real traction. So obviously, in my logical live, we kind of went over the month a bit more, January. But to end it off here, because that is game 42, right? So first half breakdown, games missed it. We missed Spicy for like the month of November, right? FEVs in and out, in and out. We pushed the button early on him. He's not fully healthy, but he's in games trying to do something, right? OG kind of not too out in the first half, got a lot of individual development, which we were talking about how a lot of the guys grew individually, but not necessarily as a team based on the games played and missed. And we're going to see Precious. Yeah, 24 is a big number, right? So OG got definitely a lot of development this year in a sense of having the ball in his hands, starting to initiate creator. We saw things up and down with that a little bit. That's how it goes. It's going to be ugly when they're first starting to master a certain skill on the NBA court, but it will pay dividends in the long run, like we've seen with Pascal and his kind of initiation drives, right? So obviously, Scottie missed a couple games in the beginning with that ankle thing, but he's kind of worked through a lot of different things. We heard in the clip that was from what February 25th, 28th, around there. They were talking about Scottie playing some of the best basketball of the year, and does he attribute like that laser focusing in on work when we were losing was the key to kind of being better and getting to this point later in the season where we've seen fourth quarter Scotties kind of emerged as a real great option depending on different matchups and stuff, obviously, but he's shown a real dynamic hunger for getting to the rack and really taking over in the fourth. And I think it's a good, real vibe for the team because that's what the other guys want. We want more guys to start doing that, need to take over and not wait till FEV has to kind of do the majority of it because no one's in rhythm. We have to start kind of working this out throughout the game and stuff. And it's going to take a second with Pirtle and not having a center since like pretty much from when Gasol was here. And then Gasol wasn't even really here the last year. So if you think about it, right? So when's the last time we really played with an authentic center like Pirtle? So there will be adjustments. But I got some good news that I'm going to leave it off on a good note because OG's talking and Nick's talking about some of the things that have improved in the second half, and I'll leave it off on there. But let's continue our dissection. Obviously, Precious out 24 games. He's our main centerpiece, like the positional center in a sense of like the guy that was soaking up a lot of center minutes for us last year. And that enabled us to win because he is a fantastic defender already. And it's funny, the OG in the same kind of interview, I'm not going to play the clip, but he does say, like, the reporter asks, have you noticed how good Precious is defensively and how it's not easy for younger guys to come in and be so effective defensively? What do you think it is? And like OG's like talking about how Precious, yeah, he's solid defensively. We saw that. That's why he got minutes in the playoffs, and we saw some of the dynamic effects of him guarding Harden and then guarding Embiid and then guarding back Harden, and it was crazy. But he's young and he needs to learn our defensive system and different things of when to rotate and when not to rotate and all that kind of stuff still. So I think just the injury obviously threw a lot of the plans that Precious had for the end of the year. But I think we could still work on different things, and I think he's still a great prospect. I think he needs to kind of regroup and start to really cement in skill by skill and get back up to that level where he was playing excellent basketball last year in the second half, right? So obviously we played a lot of Coloco early, but he's a rookie and that only goes so far when everyone else is a vet and you're a rookie, which pretty much means everyone can IQ you in a sense. But we saw some exceptional moments from Christian Coloco. Konono, and we saw his versatility, speed to block the shots. And Trey Young was scared to death of him in that one game. And we've been over his mold and what kind of we're looking at him to become. But obviously, it starts with Pirtle now, adjusting with Pirtle and being able to have him play. In a sense, it's weird. We have to kind of make things work, and then inserting him will have even better results based on him maybe having more experience, but us having more experience with a true center that has those capabilities because we haven't seen that and we've been using kind of small ball and we've been testing a lot of different things. It's still effective in certain spots, but we want to do both now. And it was a great kind of interviews there. I just didn't want to put so many clips, but they talk about Fred VanVleet was also talking about how we can go small or big with Pirtle now and how that really changes up our defensive looks and offensive looks and it creates a lot of options for us, and that's a good thing, right? So Gary Trent obviously out 6 games. He was on the bench for a bit, came back. Now he's on the bench now, currently in this moment of recording. So it's really interesting his kind of year and him declining the player option. We'll see how it shakes out, right? I think he's grown a bit. He started to try to look for passes at times and stuff and made an effort there. I've seen an effort. It's not pretty yet, but he's trying. And I think that's the next level for him to really be connective with the offense and able to move the ball and shoot it will give him more options and get more space on his shots because you can fake out a pass and get better space, get into a better spot and a cleaner shot. You know what I mean? Like a lot of different things that can open up if they don't know whether Gary Trent's going for the shot or the pass. So it's just continuing that process. He's still a young guy, like first year, like starting last year and really getting solid minutes because Portland had the CJ and Dame show kind of holding everything down. Then Anthony Simons was the next guard up, so GTJ was kind of left to his own devices a bit more, and we thought we could get more out of the asset. Where I think Powell has kind of reached his limit to where his game was going to evolve, and we could get maybe better results from Gary Trent Jr. and get a better asset in return if he's not here long term. But I think when he plays great defensively and chooses his shots well and makes the extra pass when it's very open and clear, I think he can be here. It's just he needs to gain experience, obviously defending in our system more, a little bit more, right? And then the shots, right? It's just choosing his moments and stuff. I love his demeanor. He's ice cold, always focused, laser focused. So it's just about kind of directing that focus and really utilizing him as a player. But it's just like so many guys are maining ahead of him in a sense that it's hard to have him on the court at certain times when we're building options with our kind of core guys that have been here for a little bit longer, and then Precious and Scottie that have kind of been deemed as part of the future, right? So Chris Boucher kind of missed the game. It was weird. He was up and down a bit, but he's been really solid. He's been the bench this year. Like he is the bench this year and has been putting in at least something, an effort, right? And I would call it enough to give it kind of something. So Bo Cruz, yeah, playable, but not his three ball, the rhythm that which we play offense. I don't think he was able to really connect as well, but he cut great and he made the right decisions. Like you heard Nick saying, making the right decisions is key for us to be able to win at the end of the day, in a sense of what we can allow and what we can't allow because of our own limitations and the direction that we're forced in because of our top talent is fairly young in a sense. Like the whole team is still in 20s, right? Pretty much for the majority of the lion's share guys, right? So ultimately, it is about experience at the end of the day. But in line with that, right? It you have to be able to do certain things for us to win in a certain role. And I think Bo Cruz was making the right decisions and that made him playable, but not hitting the three gave it no boost to when he was in the game. So he was kind of like a steady vet piece that you could put in that's playable, that can kind of play in the scheme and not have every play where it's let's help Bo, we have to help Bo, we have to help Bo. It's he can stand on his own in certain spots, make the right decisions offensively, knows when when it's his time to shoot and when to pass, and he was really facilitating the development of guys like Scottie and other guys that need cutting IQ and that flex actions that he was involved with. He was helping push that process. But I think without the three ball, I think it became redundant, like in a sense of when we had guys back and now with Pirtle, we don't need kind of Bo Cruz in that kind of position. He wasn't hitting a three. Pirtle doesn't have a three, so whatever. It's the same kind of thing, but Pirtle's better, and who knows what's going to happen with the future. And he has more options than Bo Cruz because he just came to the team this year. So that, yeah, playable, like available in a sense, but he had other duties, like I showed in my open gym review where I showed what that is relied on to do in a sense of trying to get the younger guys and being a support leader. So FEV and Spicy and OG don't have to be at everything in a sense if they're being overtaxed on the court. We have a guy that can help bridge things for the younger guys. And we heard that word a lot when Masai was saying his piece on Thad in the when we did his mentor files. But okay, so that he's playable, but he's not the best in a sense, and he has some skills we're trying to help develop in other guys, and his IQ and his vet leadership kind of IQ helped stabilize different guys, and we'll see how things play out. But OPJ obviously available for like 7 games max, and we took the disabled player exception, which I'm going to actually talk about. Well, no, I'm going to talk about Will Barton next week. So we're going to have another salary kind of. It's an ingenious move what Masai and company did by waiving Bo and getting Will the Thrill. Even if it doesn't pan out, it's just a show that these guys are trying to make moves. They're not saying let's not make any moves, but it's about the type of moves that they're wanting to make and they're willing to make at this point. And they're not willing to make a core swap out, but they want to find different pieces that can help like weaken the weaknesses that we have coming off the bench. Obviously, as a piece, Will the Thrill can kind of handle the ball a bit, shoot, right? So we were talking about that kind of guy, veteran mind on the bench to help kind of settle the bench down a little bit more, that's able to run the offense a little bit more. But we saw obviously the first go of it. It's not gone well the first 2 games, and Gary Trent Jr. with him wasn't exactly what we were looking at, but maybe they have to get on the same page and it might click. Who knows? We're gonna still have him out there as just a piece because I think like as for our rotation right now, you could see we planned on having like a 10-man rotation, and then we got ripped apart to like a 4 3-man rotation some nights of the key guys. I'm not talking about like everyone off the bench, right? So like those bench guys are great to fill in on moments, but they can't support the defense needed the whole game and to make the right decisions offensively the whole game. It's like they have to learn and they're not fully ready yet to take command of different things. And obviously, if we have a guy that's playing defense and knows the defensive system and people don't have to help him as much, even though if he's not scoring, he's still providing service. So defense travels always, where offense is kind of hit and miss sometimes with streakiness. And so we're building our team on the most consistent skill that can be given in a sense of defense and what you can control and what's going to happen in a sense. So obviously, Ken Birch barely in rehab, like rehabbing and then in and out and in and out. Just the timing of that knee thing just derailed his whole plan here. And obviously, at a certain point, it wasn't fair to the other guys to keep kind of having to rely on a guy. And like it wasn't fully his fault, just the knee, the injury, and not diagnosing it. I'm sure he went over and over and over again to try to figure out what was happening with his knee last season and why he was slower. But then we figured out he had a torn ligament like the whole year pretty much. Got it repaired right before the season, so he was playing through rehab on game, in game in a sense, and it just wasn't working out. We really needed him desperately, and he just wasn't available. So we had to make the move for Pirtle now, and we've seen options really open up again now with regarding kind of versatility we have because he is a guy that can put out a high level of defensive workload and pull a lot of work off the other guys where we heard FEV talk about let's get our forwards off centers and on guards now and actually use this length that we have instead of trying to compensate all the time and not be able to fully utilize the lineup we have. Now having Pirtle gives us options to utilize a whole bunch of other options. But then there's obviously going to be some tweaking and things that need to happen. And we're going to hear from OG and stuff and Nick Nurse as the final 2 clips before I hit housekeeping. But let's go on to the other guys that barely made an impact in a sense. Malachi Flynn hitting a couple shots, showing that he's worked on his shooting, like running, shooting, like around screens. He's worked on around screen shooting and stuff and still shooting. He has that kind of lock, but now the league has kind of adjusted again against him and not given him the shots that he's good at because he's proven to be good at those shots. And now it just takes one guy to kind of be in his spots that he needs for him to not be able to be effective offensively. And he has to kind of retweak his game. And it's just a development cycle over and over again of what we've seen with multiple guys when they're learning a key skill and learning counters and all type of different things, right? It's a part of their game what they're going to have to learn over their lifetime in a sense. So obviously Delano Banton, barely seen him kind of play. I think just the shooting, we needed shooting so bad. Like all our shooting options weren't really panning out early, especially FUV, where he carries such a heavy load of 3-point shooting. And having to push that button early and thinking maybe we could rely on some spicy Gary Trent, Chris Boucher, OG, Scottie getting better, Precious getting better. You know what I mean? Bo Cruz shooting the 3, Otto Porter Jr. shooting the 3, and obviously all that stuff didn't kind of work out. So we had an idea of like a 10-man rotation here. You could see Gary Trent Jr., Chris Boucher, not Bo Cruz, but Thad, Otto, and Birch slash Kuloko, which was the 10th man in a sense. And Bo wasn't in the first top 9 where we thought we had a great top 9 two-way team in a sense at the beginning of the year, and we still do. It's just the shooting hasn't came through enough, and the driving the net has led teams to just collapse every touch, and that creates missed bunnies when you have a bunch of bodies and showing bodies and making all our guys uncomfortable at the rim, and we kind of seen that fixed with Pirtle a bit, where he's the dump off option, where he's the tallest tree that can kind of get that dump off, and he has great accuracy closer to the rim and is able to make those shots. And we've won a game or two just off that skill alone. Him board manning in the fourth, really helping us stabilize the boards a lot more. We saw some issues in the Washington game, but he played excellently, and it wasn't his fault in a sense. It's just the game plan against him was well done by Washington, and I think he was effective, but he wasn't as effective as we needed him to be tonight because of the inconsistency of just spicy carrying a lot when FEV was out and the All-Star not really having a real break. FEV being out so long now, his rhythm is off, and that whole birth, death, and birthday kind of complex, a whole life story within a week in a sense. A death, a birth, which are both big important things in life in a sense, and then a birthday, which is kind of the marker between those 2 points. So really interesting week for vanvleet. I'm I'm really disappointed at his Washington game and just the some of the shots he was missing. The corner bunny threes. He needs to nail those corner threes. Like it's hard to watch those ones, especially. But I believe in FEV, and we're gonna turn it around. And let's hear from. Well, okay, actually, we have one more guy here. Justin Champagny barely played, then waived, right? He was injured pretty much, and then we needed so much work with getting these guys into sync throughout the whole season. We never really had time to kind of bring him up and give him any time. So he kind of said, okay, maybe I might get a better opportunity in Miami or something, and asked to kind of be waived and stuff. And we kind of talked about it on the days of change and how before his contract became guaranteed, we waived him and saved 1.1 million, which now use some for Joe and then some for Will Barton. So Justin Champagny paid for both Will Barton and Wisekamp. So that was a good move ultimately. We saw, okay, the first half total breakdown, 19 wins and 23 losses for 2022, 2023 first half. And I did say that Washington, like we were kind of in that Washington year mode, and we used the summer to push through half the season, and then it was kind of going to be like the second half of the Washington season, and hopefully we were going to able to build enough on that to then springboard into a better showing in the playoffs. But obviously, similar record and with the sweep added, right? So we're 4 down with the 4 losses to, and then same amount of games. It was like 15, 16 games after the trade deadline that we kind of went flat, right? After we'd been so dominating and we were riding that playoff bliss in 14, 15, right? So let's put that there for now, and let's hear about some of the changes and leave this all off on a good note, right? We want to be positive, and the direction we are going is definitely a lot better with Pirtle here. So let's continue on.
Your whole rotation up there, Fred there. I don't think you, Gary, and Fred have played together since before you got hurt.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Active.
No, it's definitely good to have everyone back, everyone healthy, everyone feeling good.
When you look at what you guys have to offer with the addition of you guys healthy now, what's your assessment?
I think we're a really talented team. We're a really good team. We can play small. We can play big. Precious. We have a bunch of different pieces. Will now. We're a really good team, I think.
A very solid effort by you guys from start to finish. What do you think of the way they grinded out a tough game?
Yeah, I think that, again, defensively, we did a lot of good things. Just a few moments, again, where we got a little, and it seems to be the same things, a few transition threes and a few transition buckets. In bar about 8 to 10 offensive possessions. I liked how we were playing offense. I still think there's some rhythm issues and scoring issues. I thought we moved the ball pretty good. I don't know how many assists we had, but we passed it good. I can't even see that. It says say 26. It's pretty good for 38 or 9 field goals. I don't know why I can't see that over here tonight, but so I thought we were making the right plays on offense. It wasn't going in as much as I liked it to, but I thought the plays were pretty much right. Again, there was 6-8 possessions that I would like to have over that we probably didn't execute or shot too quick or something like that without exploring a little bit more. But I thought the ball moved pretty good. So defense solid, offensive execution solid. The offensive scoring wasn't. I think there's some room for growth there.
So obviously you heard OG's opinion of how things are with everyone back and Pirtle now here, and he likes our team, and he believes it's just about fitting, and we have a bunch of great pieces, and we'll see how things shake out. Nick had an interesting kind of message here, just talking about some of the key points that we've seen recently where, yes, like we're winning and all this stuff, but so he didn't like 6 to 8 offensive possessions and we didn't explore enough or whatever. So Nick is critiquing the offense and telling these guys behind closed doors. He's just not going to say, this was the guy that I'm talking about. He was the bad guy. And it's not about that, right? The people that need to hear the message are hearing the messages, and we're still working through things, right? And Nick's saying we're getting the right shots. It's just about making them now, and that's where we have room to grow. And we have room to grow in other areas, but mostly in just trying to execute the finish and hitting the shot at the end of different great plays that we're able to kind of develop through the year and stuff. So ultimately, it's just about everyone coming together. I think once FEV's got his 3 back, that definitely opens up the options with him pick and rolling with Yak, and then Siakam pick and roll with Yak, and that 3 kind of tandem head rears its head again once FEV's kind of main offensive weapon, his 3 ball, and the reason why he's able to penetrate the defense so well because of the gravity of his 3 ball. And I think just the week was tough for him. Hopefully he gets it together as quick as possible. ASAP, please, Fred, please. You know what I mean? Just in pleading in a sense to the basketball gods to help him kind of speed that process. We definitely need the wins at the moment. We're trying to lock in an official playoff seed. We're in the playoff right or play in right now, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I still feel optimistic about our chances in a sense of to see real playoff basketball, whether it's either through the play-in or securing that spot early. I think we are starting to see things turn around. There are symptoms of the past still, game to game, but for the most part, we can see that the attitude around the team has kind of completely changed, and there's not this kind of doom and gloom and everything's wrong kind of feeling. We're starting to really get our momentum, and it's just about working Pirtle in more. And this one's gotten a bit long, so I'll get to housekeeping. So obviously want to start off by thanking the real ones, the subs, the likes, the comments. Like your support means everything here, you know what I mean? And don't don't be shy to let me know when you think I need to change something or I'm wrong on something. I won't just if you come with the logic and evidence, I'll definitely hear you out and be willing to adapt if it's great information. It's just you know what I mean? It's here nor there, but Raptors Freak Lex and Raptors Freak Nation always killing it. 9:30 a.m. Eastern every day, breaking down the games game to game and looking at the finer things and going over it with a finer tooth comb than I'm going through it here or I do in my now new kind of logical lives, which I do have one planned for talking on February, I think. Well, I got to figure out what day I want to do it, right? So we'll see when that comes. And obviously, the Grubstown Clink definitely delivering some great content as well. And I want to give a shout out to Van Hoot, which he recently kind of started to engage. He kind of built up the ideas for his channel, and now he's starting to play out the process of building the following and stuff. And I've shouted his channel out here before, but I definitely want to shout it out again. He has a great breakdown of piece skills and a really fantastic video, like a timeless kind of watch where you can kind of see a couple things and hear from his opinion as a true kind of a great guy with a great heart. And I believe in what he's doing, and he has some great content. Definitely put a lot of hours into that piece skills video. Really great stuff. Really great editing, clips, like a whole bunch of different stuff. Really broke it down. Really, really great. And you should definitely check out Basketball Rewind with like kind of like the VHS cassette icon. There's like a pic of it. But those are some of the other people that are doing some great content, and I just wanted to kind of salute them out for supporting my channel and what I'm doing here. And I respect completely what they're doing and what they're doing on their channel. And it's all about all of us really just making content for the real ones and pointing out basketball things and kind of try to suss through the media's game and stuff and Project Truth always, you know. So I'm going to salute the real ones and leave it off here. Project Truth always, Logical Raptors, Fanatic out, Mike G, Mike G.
Oh man, I love my team, man, I love my team. I would die for